um, as David just said, I'm the head of engineering at Howl. We're a security-oriented React Native app. So that's with like a social aspect and and personal security. I could explain that anyone has questions later, but so we're React. The front end is React Native, and so the examples in this talk are going to be from React, but I think they have general applicability. So to begin, let me just say that to me, the worst type of developer is one that is lazy. Also, the very best type of developer is one that is lazy. Meaning, it just depends when you're lazy, right? Like if you're lazy on the if you're lazy on the front, like you don't want to figure out how to do things in a clever way, then that would just cost you time later. But if you know that you don't want to waste your time later and you want to be able to have good code that's testable, so then you realize you'll have more time on the end. So that's the two types of developers. To that end, we all make reusable components for all our front end applications, and like that we can reuse them to make our life easier. So the insight for this talk is that one should do them for primitives too. I think it's a very simple idea, but I think it's something that in your workflow can make things a lot easier. So the topic was wrapping primitives. So just to get everyone the same definition. To me, what I mean by that is like taking either DOM elements or in React Native primitive UI elements that are given to you from either the platform and wrapping those in a way that you can use them or your presets and to solve problems that you won't have to solve again. So I'll give you like 3 examples. And again, this is for the most part, this is style independent. So it's not about like making them look a certain way. It's about having them behave a certain way. Okay, so let me just jump in to an example. So the insight, I said this wasn't like a style thing, but the insight came with this with this problem we had in React Native. So can everyone see there's a file here called Howl text? I'm highlighting. So the insight was in React Native, you can't really do a global style. So you can't say like all my text should be this font. So the question was how are we going to do like a global style? So for text in React Native, you have to import a UI component called text. You can't just render text into any DOM element. And so what we said was we're not going to use the generic text element. What we're going to do is we're going to import text and create a higher order component, which all it does is it takes the children, which in this case will be text. It will map the props to the component as if it would be the regular text component. And then over here, we're going to take the styles and the styles from the props. So what this does is it allows us to say, so this, unless overridden, this is always going to be the style. So now whenever we have text in the app, I don't have to think about having it to be I don't have to think about the font family. Now it is always going to be that unless it's overridden. Does that make sense? So that was like the insight to this sort of way of doing things. The next problem we had in the app was, so we had when we were testing an app, we found that you could hit, a problem that happens in a lot of apps is you could hit or click a button twice, like rapidly back to back, and that could cause problems on the back end, and it's certainly not the intended purpose. So obviously there's a lot of ways to solve this problem. You can, throttle the method. throttle your calls. You can disable the button on the you can disable on the button during that method that's passed to the button. What we thought was our way of doing it was this. We again React Native exposes something called touchable opacity. This is a testable one that we made, but it's just the touchable opacity. And again, we have a very similar component to the web. The web obviously has touch events on every single DOM element, so it's not you don't have to there is no specific component you need to do this for. But the insight was, we said like this. We said instead of having the regular on press and then focusing on the method that we passed, we said no, we're going to override that on press. We'll call it handle press, and we're shipping the and then we're going to return just our higher order component, which is the touchable opacity, and we're going to and then here on the handle press we said we set the button to disabled, and then this is an asynchronous method, so we await the method that was passed as an on press, and then we enable the button after the press. So this is like, and then this was a choice. We render an activity indicator on the button while it's fetching. So this is just a great way of solving a problem that that one never has to deal with again. So like I know that I will never have this issue of like a double press on any of my buttons because I don't use the out of the box component. The other mile of doing it like this is that right now I'm using touchable opacity, but in React Native 63, so they're going to come up with a different generic component, and there will just be one. And if I want to get the advantage of that component, I just have to change my code in one place. I never have to worry about I don't have to, and then everything will be ready. You're doing this pattern right if you can swap out all your other components and you don't have to change anything. Like again, I'm just mapping the props and I'm overriding on press. So if this is done correctly, then it should work all the time, completely style independent. I'm going to move to a more advanced example. Does anyone any questions on this? I don't know what this makes sense here. This clear? Okay. So this problem was to solve like a pressing problem and a waiting problem. Another interesting thing we had was let me just switch over. So on our app we have this component. Can everyone see this this image? So this is a modal. And it exposes. So it takes a bunch of menu options. The props are just. So I have it over here. It takes an array of items which have methods and icons, and then it just and it returns this and returns a bunch of menu options. One second. So the issue we were facing is that React icons and React Native icons, so when you import them, they import like this, right? You can't like relatively import. So the issue we have is we wanted to have icons from multiple icon families. Again, there are multiple ways of solving this problem, but the way we decided to do it was we made an icons file and we imported all of the possible icons here, and then we created a few of our own icon families. And then what we said was, and we made our own primitive out of all these. We said we're not going to use material icons as a component or icons as a component. What we're going to do is we're going to say we make an object over here of all the possible icons, and And then one of the props will be an icon family. See over here on this side, we have the menu item.icon family and menu item.icon name. And then what we're going to do is when you use the vector icon component, so what it does is it figures out which icon it should be based on this object, based on the icon family. And like this is the ugly code, right? So whenever you have ugly code, so you only want to do it once. So we use this vector icon all over the place. The solution is really this line of code, and we wanted to have this, bracket notation only once. So this was the ugly code. And then what we return is the icon, and then again with just the props mapped over as whatever someone's passing in. Those are the props. So again, this is completely style independent. It does not change the way that this component works at all. It just wraps it in a way that makes it, extends it and makes it and makes it solve problems. So these are three different problems we had over here. We had text that we couldn't that we wanted to make one family. We had Howl touchable, where we wanted to await the method so they shouldn't be double clicked, and then icons in order to be able to use multiple icon families without having to do something really ugly. And then if you see in the code, so this is what it is. It's vector icon, and then it's and then you can just provide whatever props you want. So that's the that's the way that works. Another example of this is another example of this is a toast, basically a toast that pops up when we want to alert the user or something. So this takes a huge object of arguments, and most of them are always the same in our app. And this is another thing where, like, if you find that you're doing code where you're using an exported component, but or open source component, but you're doing the same thing over and over again. So you just have like a million presets, and then you pass it as the argument as an object, and then you never have to like think about like where it will work well out of the box. So those are my examples. Does everyone have any questions on anything I did here?
Yeah, Tova has a question in the chat.
Oh, I can't see.
I can read it out loud.
Okay.
Do you find that this, unless Tova wants to jump in and read it herself?
Yeah, I don't mind asking.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if, like, when you're reading the code, do you feel like this, if you're looking through like a big complex component and you've got a bunch of these wrap primitives, like, does that, I mean, it would be hard to know because you probably know the code base really well, but do you find that adds to the cognitive load? Like, now you're not able to just have these simple names like button or text or whatever. You have like the very specific reason that you overrode it or wrapped it.
Well, we try and name it to be almost exactly the same as the naming convention be exactly the same as the primitive. So we'll call it Howl text. So I mean, it doesn't really add to the cognitive load. Like Howl touchable opacity just means that we've wrapped touchable opacity. Like it doesn't mean it doesn't add anything because it's just like it's the same name.
Okay.
So like vector icon like just makes sense. Like that's what it is. Is that clear?
Got it. So it's not like you would call a regular button with touchable opacity or something, because it just sounds so much longer.
Well, so the primitive is called in React Native touchable opacity. The one we use on the web has a different name. So that is the primitive. So all we're just adding is like the Howl one that we use.
Okay, that explains it. Thanks.
Any other questions here? No. So I just want to add that these are examples from React Native, but every single one of these exists on the web for our website. We just copies of them in the other code base, and I've been playing around with native UI components, and I think this is applicable all around. Like I don't see where I think this pattern is slowly our code base is filling with this pattern because it doesn't make any sense to just use the generics like in lists and things like that. Okay.